Guys, so we've got our gridded paper. Okay, so what do we do next? We want to find whatever image we want to use to duplicate, because we are essentially going to learn how to replicate an image, a lifelike image, onto our gridded paper here. And we're going to use a little bit of math and our brain power to get there. Okay, so I shared with you that folder on Google Drive. It's a link in the document, in the project document, and you'll see you have all of these options, okay, to choose from. They are all labeled, and if I click on one, they are all pre-loaded so that the grid is already built into them. So normally if we were in the classroom, I would have you physically grid this with like a colored pencil and then label it. I've already done that for you. You're welcome. So we have got it ready to go, and it matches our paper here. It's the exact same size. It's 9x6. It's all prepped and ready to go. So all the pictures are in black and white. Color does not matter because we're working in pencil and eventually pen. So you are going to choose the image that you want to use. I am going to pick the lion for my example. And then I am going to click download, because I would like you to have it on your computer. So it's scanning for viruses. It's taking a while. Here it comes. All right, so it has downloaded. So I'm going to go find it. My downloads sometimes go, oh, there it is. It's in the downloads file right there. Oh, and it looks like it's downloading twice, but that's okay. So then I want you to open it. Your computer will be faster than mine. It always slows down when I do my screen recording. And then it will open in the preview app on your computer. Someday it will, don't worry. And it's still thinking. Okay, so while it's thinking and loading, we're going to talk about how it's going to work. So we are going to go box by box. And if you notice, there were some blue letters and numbers on your paper. So we are going to label our paper with a grid, okay? So we want to have it match what it looks like on the image. So depending on whether yours is horizontal or vertical, copy what it has on your image. So I'm going to slide my document camera over here so that you guys can still see the lion at the same time. And it looks like, let's see, that's about the right size. Okay. So this way you can see me doing both. All right, so I want to label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And remember to do this lightly. I'm pressing a little bit harder so you guys can see it. And then in the same box as number 1 should be A, and you're going to go down. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. Okay, so it matches exactly what I've got on my lion template to the right. Now you're going to be like, whoa, Mrs. Vance, you picked a really hard example. I did on purpose, but I want to also show you that it's actually not so hard. So we are not worried about that fur detail that's right up there right now. We're not worried about that at all. We're looking for basic shapes. So the first thing we're going to do on our drawing is pull out the simple shapes that we see and then get them on here. So what this grid is going to do is going to help us focus on one box at a time. And I've got Post-its here. If you've got Post-its at home, it might help. If you have trouble blocking out, looking at one square at a time, I can physically put these on my computer screen, boop, and block off just a couple squares at a time so that I am focused just on that area. So that is a little helpful trick and tip if you have a hard time focusing on one area at a time and not the whole picture. The whole idea of drawing from a grid is to use the side of your brain that's a little bit more analytical. And so that way you are just focused on where one line starts and one line finishes instead of I'm drawing a lion. Okay, we're trying to avoid thinking about drawing a lion. We're trying to focus on shapes, curves, lines, things like that. So what I'm going to do is I want to start with something easy, and I'm going to start with that jaw line of my lion. Okay, so the jaw line starts at letter D, and it comes a little bit like there's like a third of the way the box over here. So I'm going to constantly be moving my head from the screen down to my paper, screen down to my paper, constantly to double check as I'm drawing. And I'm following this curve, and it almost like follows the edge of this grid line right there. So now I'm down in box E, and I'm going to look at, okay, what happens in F? It basically hugs this line in F, but then there's a small portion down here. So sometimes I like to look at the negative space in my drawing and match that to the negative space in my actual box. I don't know if I click right there. So you see that negative space right there? That's what I'm referring to. All right, so back to the drawing. So I'm over here, and I'm a little bit off because the curve doesn't stop here. It actually keeps going down in G. So I need to erase a little bit. And I need to take this down into G. So I'm in box G2 right now. And then I'm moving over and I'm looking up. So now I'm kind of at that line between F and G, and I'm in box 3. And so this is where it starts to curve and form like the mouth area. And this is going to lead up to the nose. I'm going to stop there. I'll wait to do the nose in a little bit. And I'm going to jump over to the other side. And it's going to be almost symmetrical, but no photograph is perfectly symmetrical. This is a real photo and not like a computer generated image. So it's not going to be exactly the same as the other side. So you really do have to look. And I already kind of messed that up myself. It's got a slower curve there before it comes out to the other side. Now, I'm holding my pencil pretty loosely and a little bit further up. That's in my sketching phase. When we go to add more details, when we want to grab tighter. But for this project, we're always going to stay in that sketching phase, because when we go to add more detail, we're going to actually use a pen, our ultra fine tip Sharpies. All right, so I'm moving over here to this last row of boxes, or column of boxes, I should say. And I'm like worried that this looks weirdly lumpy right now, but I think it's fine. So I'm coming up here. I need to trust the process, trust that I'm watching where the lines are coming out of each box and how much space they're taking up. And it sort of disappears over here. So now I'm going to come back into this nose area. So I'm going to come up, and the nose comes all the way to here. So I'm going to actually jump over here because I know that it basically ends there. And it's okay to do a little bit of shading as you go to kind of signify where those dark spots are, but be careful again of pressing too hard, because we don't want to see the pencil when we're all done. Okay, so now the nose is coming to life a little bit more. And there's subtle changes from dark to light. So you're going to want to make sure you recognize that as well, where the really dark spots are and where the lighter spots are, because that is definitely going to matter as we progress through the project. Okay, so again, if you watch, you're probably like getting dizzy from me looking back and forth, but I want you to understand that that's the best approach to doing this, is having your paper and your screen in Eyesight. Now, because of my setup and drawing for you, I have to look kind of diagonal, but if I were you, I would just put your computer right kind of behind your workspace, kind of like right here, and that way you're just kind of like glancing up as you go. Okay, so there are a lot more details in the nose, but again, I'm not worried about super fine details right now. I want basic shapes. I want the contour, is what we call it in drawing. Okay, that basic outline, think more coloring book. So at this point, I would maybe go down. It's a little tricky because my little head is blocking the fur. Here, I'll slide it over a little bit. So I'm looking at how much space the beard area takes up. And it's a little tricky because the beard has, sorry guys, I'm trying to move that sound out of the way. There we go. Because the beard has some, some texture to it. So I'm going to put in the shape first. Okay, I'm kind of ignoring the whiskers right now, and I'm just kind of squinting my eyes and looking for basic shape and like how much space those whiskers take up. Paying attention to which boxes they're in. Okay, so this weird shape is where my whiskers are, okay? So then I can kind of go back and cut into those whiskers with that negative space, looking at the directionality of the whiskers. So I'm essentially kind of almost drawing in the dark space and leaving the light from where the whiskers are. Okay, you get the idea. That's a little too detailed, so I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, but at least I know where that is. All right, so I'm going to move up to the eyes. So let's see. My eyes are in box pretty much B2 is the center of this eye. And eyes are tricky. I feel like everybody always just kind of draws the oval, but you really need to measure. You've got to look at how much space it physically takes up in the box and where the lines come in and out of. I like to say like, okay, it's about like a third of the way, or it's a quarter of the way, and kind of just go back and forth and double check with my eyes. And sometimes I'll even measure with my pencil or something else I've got nearby to see if it matches up. I really need to pay attention to my angle too, the angle that I'm drawing in that eye shape in. Okay, so now I'm moving to the other side. I'm in B5 is where it starts. That's where like the tear duct area is. And it kind of crosses just up top a little bit. And then it comes down like this. And then I'm going to quickly just make sure that these two are roughly the same size, because it would be really weird if one of them was super huge, because this picture was pretty much taken straight on in the lion. So we should be able to see that. I'm going to just kind of draw in where the shadowy area is, where the darker part of the eyeball, to give it a little bit more life right now. Okay, and this is kind of as far as I want you to get on day 1. Okay, so then on day 2, when you come back to this, you're going to then evaluate, where do I need to put in more detail? So for this lion in particular, this is where I can start looking at the fur of the lion and pinpointing where I have the lightest areas. So I am looking over here in these light areas underneath the eyes, the light areas in the muzzle area over here. Okay, and I'm gonna basically draw those as shapes. So I'm going to kind of draw that shape in and know that that's a lighter area. Think of it kind of like a paint by number. The more information you can give yourself in setting this up, the easier it's going to be once you have your pen and you're ready to start making your dots for the stippling. It's so much easier the more information you have. So I'm like going in here with the darker areas where the whiskers are coming out of and making sure I get that notified or marked on here. So again, that back and forth of measuring and looking, measuring and looking. So it doesn't look like I have much going on, because my lion, to be honest, doesn't have stripes. He doesn't have dots. So I don't have a lot of like big shapes to just simply look at. So I do need to go and look at those details. I need to say, where does this like middle gray value end in the muzzle before it starts getting lighter as it comes this way? Where does this lighter value pull down, and where does it meet in the middle? Where is those dark speckles between the eyes? Okay, and I would put all of that in. So your goal is to get on the second day of doing this, because day 1, I want you to grid your paper and pick out your picture and then get your contour started. Day 2 is take all that time to put in the details. Okay, so however long that might take you is just kind of depends on your project and what details in the photo. But you definitely want to go back in and say, where do I need to signify that it's darker? Where do I need to mark that it's lighter? And just kind of add that in. I felt it was necessary to add a little bit of dark here so you can kind of see where that mouth and it creates the depth of where it would open for our lion. And yes, we will do the background for this lion because that fur that's in the back, we need to put that in darker so that it pops off the face when the face is lighter. Some of your pictures just have like a flat background. You don't need to worry about that at all. Okay, so it's kind of picture dependent, but most of the pictures, you don't need to worry about your background. But some of them where the animal takes up the entire frame, then yes, you do need to kind of use that background to help you get all the details in. All right, good luck, have fun, be awesome. It's going to be great.